become an expert in the life of Jeffrey Epstein and the crimes of Jeffrey Epstein, and you've released on your channel, I believe it's over 100 videos related to Jeffrey Epstein.
Yeah.
How did you get so fascinated by the story of this man, and can you elaborate a little bit more about the stuff that you published on him?
The people who watch and subscribe to my channel and post comments and contact me through email, social media, they completely steer what I do. Everything that's done has been at their suggestions. So I've got a prison questions playlist on the channel.
Okay.
And when Epstein got arrested, people just started sending me messages, what will happen to Epstein? I did a video titled, "Will Bill Clinton have Epstein murdered in prison to avoid Lolita scandal?" And that was just based on all my research I'd done into the Clinton crime family.
And when did you release that video?
Weeks after he got arrested and weeks before he got suicided. So when he did get suicided, my channel kind of became this go-to channel for Epstein news, and people just kept sending in more questions. Someone sent me the unredacted black book quite quickly before it was in circulation. So I just got on the phone and just started calling people up, like, you know, trying to call people like Mick Jagger and all these people that were like, so that it all went crazy viral. Some of those videos got like almost 1 million views and stuff.
Whoa.
So then I just started, it got to the point where I had to just do a daily Epstein video. At one point I was doing 2 Epstein videos a day. And there's like enough now for about 2 books. I think I'm going to do Who Killed Epstein Part 1 and Part 2.
I noticed one of the videos that you published I was looking at. I don't know if it was one of the most recent ones or if it was one of the ones in the beginning, but you were talking about how Epstein was friends with Elon Musk and worked with Tesla somehow in some capacity.
Yeah. When Elon Musk tweeted that Tesla was going to get bought out, and he knew that it wasn't, but he'd been having some dealings with Epstein, and Epstein was hooked up with a Saudi prince. So there was a pipe dream hope that that was going to happen. And Musk absolutely should not have done that tweet because it goes against all of the security laws.
Right. You can't do that.
As a former stockbroker, I had to do all these different exams and get my licenses and stuff to learn all that stuff. So Tesla price shot up, but then it went right back down, and Musk got this huge fine. And he was being advised by Epstein around that time. Yeah.
So I guess let's go back a little bit and talk about Epstein for people who aren't necessarily privy on all the details of the case and all, not necessarily that case, but all the details of his history with the sex trafficking and the organizations he was involved with. Could you give me sort of kind of like a description of or backstory of what that is?
Yeah, Epstein started to go out with Ghislaine Maxwell, who is the daughter of Robert Maxwell. And it was Robert Maxwell that brought Epstein into the Mossad fold, because Maxwell, he built this multi-billion-dollar criminal enterprise whereby he was, you know, he could sit down with George Bush, he could sit down with Gorbachev, but he was also laundering money for all of the different mafias around the world, the Russian mafia, the cartels, the Colombians, the Japanese Yakuza, and he was feeding information to all the different intelligence agencies. So he'd go to Russia. He had money laundering operations set up through Bulgarian banks, and Russia was in control of that through the KGB. So he'd be sat down with the KGB heads. Then when he came to England, MI5, MI6 will be asking him what's the Russians saying. But his heart and soul was with Israel. That's where his ultimate loyalty was. After himself, of course. He was, you know, this grandiose, bombastic narcissist. Now, Robert Maxwell, he became a liability to the intelligence agencies. I'm reading the book called The Assassination of Robert Maxwell right now. And they detail how the Mossad take him out and make it look like an accident. He's off his yacht, the Lady Ghislaine, and this is off the Canary Islands, and he's found dead in the water, basically.
Okay.
And it comes out that he's looted, hundreds of millions from pension funds and stuff like that, and all these people have lost their money. So Robert Maxwell brings Epstein into the fold. And once you're into that fold, we're talking Iran-Contra. People saying we don't know where Epstein's money came from. The money from these elites comes from the most profitable businesses in the world, and they're all interlinked. And I learned that because when I wrote about Barry Seal, he was a cocaine transporting pilot for the CIA. And it was drugs come up from South America on these military planes. In his case, they were going through Maine, Arkansas, and other drops in Arkansas. George H.W. Bush, Oliver North were heading this scheme, and Bill Clinton's governor of Arkansas was providing the state security. So it's drugs in, weapons out. That's what Maxwell was heavily involved in. He was a key broker in the Iran-Contra deal, whereby Reagan was going to have him, release the hostages, and that was boost his popularity in exchange for illegally giving Iran arms, which were financed by drug deals. CIA is bringing the drugs in. Gambino crime family was just one of the crime families, helping them distribute it. So I believe once Epstein was introduced into that fold, his money would have come from laundering proceeds for intelligence agencies who were tapping into the, weapons, drugs, oil, and human trafficking. What we see with Epstein is just the tip of the iceberg. There are far bigger players than him, and he was sacrificed so that those players wouldn't be exposed, including the Clintons, including Leslie Wexner. So Wexner, owner of the Limited, and all of a sudden, the Limited, the company, the Limited, Victoria's Secret, the fashion show, the lingerie,
right?
And Epstein and Wexner were tight, and the properties that Epstein had, that were worth multi-millions, they came from Wexner, but there's no evidence that he actually paid for any of them. And the Wexner properties in New York, it had already been fitted up with all the spy cameras before Epstein even moved in. Wexner had it all rigged up like that. So honey traps have been used for decades by the intelligence agencies. If you can entice people into your web, people as powerful and famous as Prince Andrew, and then you could get them in compromising situations. And Virginia Roberts, one of the bravest victims, who's just not let this lie, who's completely running with it every single day. I'm in communication with her on Twitter. I'd urge people to go over on Twitter and retweet her stuff and offer her support, because she's had multiple death threats. FBI have even said that they're credible. She said that Prince Andrew not only had sex with her twice individually, but also on a third occasion on the Pedo Island, had engaged in an orgy with her and teenagers that were underage, who Epstein had procured from East Europe. And Epstein was joking, saying, they can't even barely speak English. These are the easiest girls to get. And one of the guys he was getting them through was Jean-Luc Brunel, who also ran a modeling agency out of France, which launched some very famous models. And Epstein bragged that he slept with over 1,000 of Jean-Luc Brunel's girls. Because of his connections to the government, he was fast-tracking them into the country. He could get them visas just like that. Jean-Luc Brunel gave him 12-year-old triplets for his birthday present. And Epstein was boasting to Virginia about how good the oral sex was with these 12-year-old girls. So, a complete depraved entity. I started writing about the war on drugs, and it led to the Clintons and the Bush crime families, and then on to Epstein, and it's a very, very dark place. Now, I've got a weekly true crime podcast on my YouTube channel, and one of the most recent guests was Prince Andrew's former Royal Protection Officer. And he was working for Prince Andrew when Ghislaine Maxwell was just waltzing into Buckingham Palace. She didn't have to go through the security protocol, didn't have to put a name in the system properly. And we saw Prince Andrew do that car crash interview on the BBC, and he's talking so polite about a manner unbecoming and a straightforward shooting weekend. But according to Paul Page, the ex-cop, if guests of Andrew's were held up, Andrew would get on the phone, say they didn't have ID or the cops were trying to do the proper security procedures. Yeah. Andrew just get on the phone like, let that fucking person through now before I fucking come down there. I'll fucking have you lose your job. Don't you know who I am? So that's the kind of character he really was. But he's not the brightest bulb.
Right. Not the brightest crayon in the box.
No, I mean, Epstein and Maxwell are at the shark level, and they've got that psychopathic, deviant level of knowledge. Andrew, I believe, was seduced into that. They wanted to get that power leverage over him, and he found it so seductive that even after Epstein had been convicted the first time round, when he got his sweetheart deal,
right,
against the wishes of the royal family, Andrew went back over to Epstein's 4-day celebration from prison party where Prince Andrew was the guest of honor. And then Andrew gets on the BBC and says he was flying all that way just to break up his relationship with Epstein. But that BBC interview was just one big lie, the whole thing. Even the FBI have called him out. He said, I'm going to cooperate with all of the law enforcement agencies. And now the FBI, all these people, all these lawyers, prosecutors are saying multiple times they've contacted the royal Buckingham Palace, the lawyers, and Andrew's not being forthcoming at all. So the whole thing was just one big whopper, that interview. But what Paul Page said was, the royal cop, Andrew did know that whatever he said, even if he incriminated himself, he will never spend a day in jail because the royal family are so powerful. It's one law for them and another law for the rest of the world. Anyone else would have been SWAT team raided and sent to prison and stabbed in the belly by the Aryan Brotherhood for being a chomo.